Welcome back. Our next panel is titled From Breaking Point to Making a Point, How 2020 Challenged Customer Centricity. And during this panel, you will have an opportunity to hear how three major companies from different industries have responded to this year's challenges and how they see the future of customer experience in their line of work. So our next stop is Belgium, and I would like to wish a very warm welcome to our dear companion on many innovation journeys, Afonso Rebelo de Sousa. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Afonso is an innovation consultant and the expert in corporate venture building. And at this moment, Afonso, I'm handing over the virtual mic to you so you can go on with the panel discussion. Thank you. Afonso, I think you're on mute. We didn't hear
I am not on mute anymore. I thought I was going to be unmuted. I unmuted myself. Thank you for that warm welcome, Georgia. Thank you for those who are in the panel. Look, I love listening to Mario. He says it like it is. We've learned a lot today, but now we're going to switch gears. 2 weeks ago, I discussed with Luca, who you probably saw in the previous panels earlier, about customer journeys, customer centricity, what's happening. We had some great talks about we're hurt, and we need to readdress where we're going. This year has forced us to try to make a point with our brands because 2020 has changed. But who better to learn from than an esteemed panel of peers in our industry who can tell us how they're tackling this head on, not just for today, but also for the future, what they're learning. So without further ado, I'd like to have a very warm welcome to Maja Ristić, Customer Experience Manager at OTP Banka in Serbia. There's Maja coming in. We also have Marko Jović, our Senior Customer Experience Manager at A1 Telekom Austria Group. And last but never the least, Miloš Ičević, Head of Integrated Product Strategy for Serbia and Montenegro at Roche. You can see us for now. So guys, rule of the game. I'm going to be fast into the questions because I want to learn from you. I really want to know what are you doing? How are you doing it? What are you learning? So before we go into the whole COVID, I actually want to start with you, Marko, and try to understand what is the role of customer journeys at A1 Telekom Austria Group? How does it play a role in your bigger strategy?
Well, to be honest, customer journeys is just one small part of the whole customer experience program and the ecosystem and overall customer experience strategy. We provide within our footprint and our local markets full autonomy to devise these processes by themselves. This means they can execute them on a very low level or on a very high level for meaning for big products that we launch, but also for very small processes that impact end customer experience. Since we are talking about how the COVID has impacted us, I have to mention that in this initial period, almost within the whole footprint, the main focus was on keeping the core services stable, the connectivity services. So providing the infrastructure and connectivity to our customers was of absolute priority. Thus, this main customer journey was primary focus within the entire footprint. This is how we see it. Yeah.
So always relevant, big, small, you always look at it and try to make sure that you're going to serve customers at least with the core products for now.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Maja, I'm going to move over to you. Now, the banking customer journey is one which is very detailed. What stages are relevant to such a pandemic where I haven't been to my bank branch in a very long time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm very proud of our phase in the customer journey framework that we actually came to while doing the ethnography research. So you know that banks are not kind of a lovable industries by itself, but somehow we, yeah, that's good for you and for your bank. Somehow we came to the conclusion that clients of the banks really wants to feel care from the bank. So we have this phase of our customer journey that is called I Feel Care, and it is I share the same values with my bank. We share the same core principles, etc. So we just when the pandemic started, we stopped and we said, okay, now we need to work on the I Feel Care part of the journey. So we set up our customer experience strategy with the pandemic as on the 3 pillars, like taking care of the health of our clients and the employees. Timely communication. So we wanted to make sure that everything is communicated in time with our clients and empowering digital. So really empowering and encouraging our clients and also our colleagues in the bank to use all the digital features that we have developed before the pandemic. So these are, let's say, one phase that we tackled at the beginning. But as you all know, like after a few weeks, life moved on. This was like the first few weeks of the pandemic where we say, okay, we don't want to sell now. It would be like awful for us, for our business. We don't want to be remembered as pushy bankers that try to use the moment, but rather to help our clients to move on with their lives. So that was their need to move on. So we were actually empowering clients to use digital, going and saying, guys, use contactless for paying, do not use cash, don't go to the branch offices, use ATMs, use our digital branch to buy products if you need one. For our business clients, we said, okay, how we can help you to boost your business, how we can help you to recover. So we set up a lot of tools that will actually help our business clients. Like we partner with a company to help clients to set up the website for online sales, for online shopping. Then we said, okay, e-commerce, let's see, we have plugin solutions, let's help you. And then we had, okay, the e-commerce is quite a complex thing to do, especially for smaller companies like grocery shops, family-owned businesses, etc. So then we came up with some other solutions like Pay by Link solution, which was actually launched during the pandemic to help small businesses. So these were, I would say, two most important phases of our customer journey that we tackled when pandemic starts and during the pandemic, during first 2 months, let's say.
Well, it sounds like if we go back to the panel on design thinking, the empathy was there. You're empathized as much as you could with people. And as return, you probably have now a high degree of digitalization of your products and services. And we'll go back later to what you mentioned that you're already testing in the market. Because I want to ask also, Miloš, healthcare, pharma, government, patient, we don't always understand how customer journeys are so complex in your industry. Could you help us map that out? How is customer journey relevant to your role and to Roche when it comes to such a pandemic?
So one scientific magazine recently published a medical article titled "Everything is so outdated because everything is so new," referring to the pace of progress in medicine. And this is really reflecting a lot on our customer journeys, especially in a way that enriches our customer maps. And to understand those interdependencies that you, Afonso, imposed, I just need to quickly add the context. So what is specific about innovative pharmaceutical companies is that we are marketing only products that can be taken if prescribed. Prescription needs to be done by a physician, and then also looking at the patient who uses the product or physician who is prescribing it. Neither one of them are actually paying for the product because products are covered by health insurance fund or state, if you may, and this makes really our customer journeys rather complex. With COVID-19, but also irrespective of it, I will highlight three major shifts in regards to our customer journeys. The first one, many years ago, we shifted from product experience to customer experience, and this was a tough work for us because our innovative medicines are life-saving drugs often, and then we had this really product-centered and not customer-centered culture, but it's changed. Another major shift that we are currently going through, and this is really accelerated by COVID-19, this is not providing products or medicines, but providing solutions. And this really requires co-creation with all those stakeholders that you mentioned, and also agile development methodologies. And the last one is ecosystem view. So our journey to end user or patient is not really that straightforward if you think of traditional buying process. And then bearing in mind that principles of, let's say, successful ecosystems like tech have been built around in-depth understanding of customer needs and quality of life, we are taking this into perspective. And to conclude, the underlying shift among those three actually are the shift of culture in healthcare, someone would say, toward consumerism, but in a way to look at the patients as consumers and then value modeling everything according to their experience. And this is really a huge shift that we are going through now.
This is so much already. Look, in one question, if you just joined in as part of this panel, we've learned from Marko that big or small, we are looking at customer journeys because we need to protect the core of our delivery. With Maja, we learned empathy with the problem people are having at home and how they can digitalize their banking needs. And with Miloš, we learned that internally, they had big shifts from providing products and services to providing solutions, to looking at the product, to providing not the product, but again, a solution to the customer, and how they could also have this cultural shift at Roche. So big changes, which moves me to a second question, and probably early on, but I want to know technology. Have you adopted any new technologies throughout this process? I'm going to jump again over to you, Marko, because I'd love to learn as a telecom company, any new technologies and experiments or generally that you've adopted.
Well, I can only talk about our, let's say, customer experience program, and in the customer experience world, maybe new technologies that we are looking at. To be honest, right now, we are trying to experiment a bit in the field of indirect feedback. We, as a customer experience program, are very focused on better understanding our customers, better understanding our customer journeys. And for that purpose, we are using a lot of different tools. Currently, let's say the traditional way of collecting and analyzing feedback from our customers is via traditional surveys. And what we realized when the first COVID hit, that in the time of crisis, perhaps it is not the best approach to further expand your survey design, let's call it like that, and ask more questions, but focus maybe more on listening. And for this purpose, we recognize social media and also digital touch points as a growing touch points, especially now. Thus, they are becoming more and more relevant for us to listen and analyze feedback from them in so-called indirect ways. So not asking their surveys, but analyzing the feedback, being proactively left by our customer base and community on our digital touch points and social media and relevant forums also.
Actually, it's a great point, because actually I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. A lot of companies were still sending out surveys.
Surveys are still here. We will not, let's say, remove them, but they have to be very carefully thought of and very carefully monitored. We cannot overspam and overask customers and in this very difficult time. But at the same time, we are introducing new ways of interacting with our customers, and we would love to get their feedback on how do they perceive it and are they satisfied with it.
Fantastic. And over to you, Maja. Any technologies throughout, your empathetic journey that you had with customers?
Just to get back shortly to what you said about the surveys. So I'm not sure how many banks in Serbia is actually sending out the surveys. We do the transactional satisfaction like on the spot. So we stopped this surveying when pandemic started, and during the whole state of the emergency, we were not sending the surveys. But what we do see is that our satisfaction scores are going higher after the pandemic. So people are actually reacting to the empathy that we showed, and they're actually getting back to us like with the higher scores. So this was just a reflection on what you and Marko were talking about. And regarding to the technologies, well, I cannot tell you that we have experimented with some new technologies, but rather new features of the technologies that we already have. Like I mentioned before, and it is really the raising thing now with the banks here, is that e-commerce flew. The e-commerce is actually something that was frequently asked thing from the banks, from the businesses. And we see that also on our issuing side, for example, as a card issuer. We see a huge increase in number of e-commerce transactions done by our card holders. So I think that with this, we did really a nice improvement. But as I said, e-commerce is quite a complex thing to set up. So we were talking with our clients and said, why? What's the problem? We have plugin solutions for most of the platforms that can be used for the websites, etc. And say, look, we don't have websites. even if we make it, we don't have resources to manage the warehouses. We don't have resources to update the website. So the e-commerce is too complicated for us, and we need a quick solution. So we said, okay, let's see what we can do. And what we did is actually to introduce the service called Pay by Link, which is actually one small part of the e-commerce transaction. So what you actually do is that you have a grocery shop, you take your order by phone from your client, you make an Instagram page or whatever, so you do marketing, then your customer calls you, you say, oh, I have, I don't know, I have paprika, but I don't have soya milk, and give me 6 eggs, etc. And so when you put everything in your paper bag, you say, okay, my client, the price for this is, I don't know, 15 euros. And then I go to the website of my own web shop, put your phone number and the amount that you need to pay, and I send you an SMS with the link that will forward you to the payment by your card. So basically what we did is that we used the part of the e-commerce transaction and translated it to the level that customers, our clients that cannot use e-commerce because of the complexities, but still can use to improve their businesses, to boost their business, to survive in the time of the pandemic. So it's not a new technology, but it's a new feature that we introduced looking at the needs of our clients.
Very clear. So again, responding to the market need with the best tools you have. I'm going to come back to you, Maja, just after I learned from Miloš. What about at Roche? Did you adopt any new technologies that you're either still experimenting with or are taking it head on in the long term?
I will also start quickly with a reflection to what Marko and Maja said. So I think that digital consumer behaviors that are brought from other industries, because people will naturally for sure use any app or feature that banking industry, for instance, is providing. I think this is influencing a lot digital behaviors and also pace of adoption of new technologies in healthcare. And like one simple example, if a healthcare professional is trying to find a clinical trial for a patient, it should be as easy as finding a hotel online or matching, I don't know, a date via app. And then we are really trying to, let's say, copy paste those successful, let's say, solutions that exist. But with part of the ecosystem that we have direct, let's say, interaction, very important thing is, for instance, in medicine, the doubling of medical knowledge is in 73 days. So this is extremely fast. And I think any physician or any human is not capable to acquire those information in, let's say, analog way. So for this, we are really using a lot of digital channels to even personalize information that we are delivering according to the scope and needs of each physician. And one step forward to it is actually the use of artificial intelligence in medicine, which is really increasing. And we have some kind of clinical decision support tools that help really processing the big data from clinical practice and also information, and then help clinical decision making. In Serbia, as we have also big investment in local research and development, artificial intelligence is part of some clinical trials. And for instance, neurologists can compare their own interpretation of CT scans or MRIs with artificial intelligence. This is already everyday practice in some developed countries, in some hospitals, but we are proud that we are for now able to provide this experience, let's say, in clinical research settings. And just another short example, we internally really did master, even before COVID, the use of online collaboration tools like Miro, Mural, Jamboard, etc. And this year we have been using those really extensively in co-creation with customers. And I think then this not only helps the process of co-designing solutions, but also influence the digital behaviors and this, let's say, cultural and collaboration shift that we want to achieve in healthcare in general.
Well, that's a lot of things. So you are looking at booking tools for patients. You're looking at knowledge share tools, internally between the medical profession and this knowledge that needs to be shared, and AI processes as well, in addition to collaboration tools. And that's a very nice thing. A lot of us have adopted new tools to work internally, to see people start using it externally. That's pretty amazing. And I actually want to move to the next topic. So, okay, so we spoke about the importance of customer journeys. We understood from you what technologies are you trying, what work streams you may have in the pipeline, but also I want to understand a little bit more of experiments that you are doing and are able to share any results. For example, Maja, I'm going to jump into the conversation with you and understand your new methods of payment, right? With the text message, which is probably not the most robust technology that you will wish you had, because building an e-commerce platform is hard. Is that here to stay? Are you developing it? What's going on with that one?
Yeah, it's here to stay, definitely, because when we were talking to the clients in order to understand what is the problem with setting up the e-commerce solution, and we came up to the three things, and it's great. I'm very proud of it, because we are talking about the customer experience in our organization for many years now, but we have a program in place for like 2 years now, and I can really proudly say that now this customer experience, like the problem solving thing, like go to the customer and ask what is the problem, is actually showing today after 2 years, and really all of my colleagues, they just always start with what is the problem. So why can we not set up the e-commerce? Because we did everything. Where is the problem with the client? And so then we came to the three things that would actually recognize as a pain points from the client side. It is the fear of the integration. They don't know how it will work, and they have to spend a lot of time and resources in order to integrate it. So we say, okay, we have to find a way to make a solution for this, and we are making it, but I cannot still tell you what it is. It will be still in the line. Then, okay, the second next big problem is shipping, like the couriers. That was the thing during the pandemic because they were all late, etc., etc. So how can we use some maybe APIs? Can we use some technologies behind to maybe put closer together the merchants and the couriers? And then there is this warehouse management thing that is actually the biggest pain point. It means that the small businesses do not have capacities to really maintain their warehouses, to really have their warehouses up to date. This is really for the big systems, a part of the journey and the process, but not for the small companies. So this new technology is definitely here to stay, and I can tell you that this is not the only thing, because this is something that we launched during the pandemic, so it is the one that I can talk about. But and this whole thing by itself was a kind of a huge experiment, right? Like this COVID situation, I guess that you all heard many times until now that this COVID pandemic was actually an accelerator, and that we have all just fast forward with our ideas that we had somewhere in the pipeline, and which is, for me, it is fascinating to see how companies easily shifted from defending of the COVID to attack and to creating opportunities. This is actually that all the companies that are here to stay did. And this is something that we did also. So we end up with this state of emergency and this first few months of the COVID with a list of COVID initiatives. The things that we realized during the pandemic, COVID is here and it will stay for some time. Let's see what we can do to make our life easier and the life of our customers and all other stakeholders.
Thank you for sharing, Maja. I mean, I also appreciate that you touched upon B2C, but also B2B in experiments you're doing, and how important it is for these businesses to find their customers today, because they're effectively also looking at their customer
and
journeys.
These are our customers also. So
yes, so you have that double responsibility, B2B2C, where people do transactions via them.
Yeah.
Marko, over to A1 Telekom Austria Group. Any particular experiments you're doing today, and are they here to stay?
Well, definitely. I mean, as Maja said, I think we are all right now in the gear of never waste a good crisis, but use it as an opportunity. So this is what we are also trying to do. But at the same time, we are trying to be very careful regarding new experiments and new projects and being very responsible with the cost saving and etc. But what I can mention is number one, I mentioned this regarding the technology and focusing more on listening and trying to enable the operative markets to use this feedback in a meaningful and purposeful way. What we also see as a trend, and we will of course touch on this a bit later, is how incredible the digital transformation is coming and storming right in, and we don't have any more time to wait for it, but to really start doing it as best as we can. And in this sense, we are also trying to find the best way to collect feedback regarding these digital experiences and combine it with physical experiences, because it needs to start from the customer regardless of the touch point. So we are now exploring the opportunity to change the KPIs we are looking at. This is one. In operative opcos, we can see a lot of incredible initiatives. For instance, in Bulgaria, we see a collaboration between Avon Bulgaria and the local government regarding digitalization of classes in elementary schools. So this is one very good experiment. I think it will stay. The other one is right here in Serbia. We see that a segmented offer for elder population with the focus on even improved customer experience and help and support to this specific segment. And I think it will also stay here. The battlefield will more and more shift towards the customers and the experience. That's definitely.
Well, it sounds like this is the second time that you really mentioned, as a telecom company, a communication company, you're really listening. You're really, really trying to listen as much as you can. And so I understand correctly that you have both regional initiatives and local initiatives that you're testing out as well.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And Miloš, and okay, earlier you spoke about so many things you're doing, from in processes, AI, knowledge, booking tools. How does this work for you on a regional, because you have Serbia and Montenegro versus local? Does it change?
Well, we are pretty decentralized, so the most of the solutions are really developed locally according to the local needs and assessment, but there are also some global, very valuable, let's say, project initiatives or even solutions that were launched that we can take over and also launch locally. Locally, we really have a lot of ideas, and also I think Maja mentioned many of the ideas we had in the pipeline, but then COVID situation was a great opportunity to launch some of those, because probably the value was more visible. And a lot of solutions are digital, but I wanted just to mention that some solutions doesn't necessarily need to be digital. And for instance, during the pandemic, we have provided, in collaboration with healthcare institutions, personalized drug delivery at home that helped decrease the risk of getting infected. That is particularly important for chronic patients. This is, of course, not a mainstream yet, but with patients being more educated and also more able to self-manage their own health, I think this is a great option to be considered in the future. And then also in the industry, globally are discussed some technologies like using drones for personalized deliveries, etc. So definitely something good will come out also on this, and some solutions will become definitely a mainstream in the future.
Well, it sounds like all of you speak a lot of what I do, which is build ventures and explore new business models that can serve customers, which for me gets me very excited. But I want to move into also trends. I really want to understand, what trends do you see are picking up from customers, so people who are listening can learn, oh yeah, that is true, but customers are picking up that. And what other trends do you see that are happening in your organizations? What are people doing differently to serve customers? I'm going to move over to you, Marko.
Sure. Well, in the reports and the work with the operative companies so far since the pandemic started, I see two trends that are really emerging, and I think they can be adopted across various industries, so not only telco. The number one, I mentioned this, is definitely digital transformation. We see incredible increase in customer interaction via digital touchpoints. Thus, they are becoming more and more relevant for the customers, and for us, this is now a very hot topic. I believe and I see customer experience programs and customers in the center of this digital transformation. Why do I say this? Because if you have a bad physical process, if you want to call it like that, and you only shift it to digital, it will remain bad. So you need to take in consideration what is the experience behind it. So the end result always must be a seamless experience and an easy to use experience. So this is one trend that I see as a very important one and as a very emergent trend. And also, I mentioned this, it's very important that you are able in a very right way to analyze how the customers perceive this. Is it really seamless for them, or is it no? And how do you measure this? So maybe think in the direction of changing the KPIs you look at these digital touch points. The second trend I see, and it's really interesting, it's sort of collides with the first trend. We discussed this at the very beginning, empathy. I think empathy right now goes a really, really long way. And various industries, I see this for banking and for telco as well. This opportunity is really the right opportunity to build long-lasting relationship with your customers by being as much flexible as you can with your processes, creating them in a customer-centric way, but also provide them with a service that is always available, always easy to access, and always easy to use. There are some reports that say that right now you will either make it or break it. So I really think this is an incredible opportunity for brands across various industries to really step up their game and create long-lasting relationships with their clients.
I couldn't agree more, Marko. Really, I mean, our pool of customers might even be slightly smaller, but more loyal, which in the end could be more customer lifetime value. You also, in the first point that you mentioned, which reminds me of something, which is sometimes we can't scale too fast. If we scale the mistakes too fast, those mistakes grow, and then it becomes an octopus. So I hope you agree with me. That's something I also take away. Now I'm going to jump to you, Miloš. What trends do you see are happening in the market, and how you're serving customers?
Mm-hmm. As we are a highly regulated industry, for instance, one of the rare digital technologies that we cannot really use because we cannot talk about our products to public are social media. However, among our customers, either physicians or patients, and then especially at the global level, social media are blooming. And the main purpose is mostly education among physicians and also among patients, raising awareness and also getting sometimes second opinion from physicians worldwide. And what is really great here, if you remember, I mentioned medical knowledge is doubling in 2 months today. This is this flow of information and also the easiness of creating a network. So like all global opinion leaders in medicines are on the Twitter, for instance. Medical Twitter is flourishing especially, and it's so easy to reach them, or at least to hear their opinion about any information that is delivered. Putting this in a context of, I think, customer centricity that is underlying here, I have been reading recently this book, The Social CCO, and I really loved one of the conclusions that says that social media are about listening and engaging, and then those are the core competencies for customer centricity. So what we as industry are now trying to is definitely to understand and to have like social listening, because we cannot really proactively participate in those discussions, but this is really an important, and I would say even, let's say, a core place where we can see what are the discussions between healthcare professionals and patients as well.
And that's a very responsible use. I've worked before in social media, and I always do. Yes, the healthcare industry is very careful in the way it participates, if it does at all. So that's interesting for us to know as a trend that you are actively looking. How can you responsibly extract knowledge just to better serve? A little bit like we've heard today. We're taking on board a lot from the customer and trying our best to respond responsibly, which moves me over to you, Maja. And in terms of trends, so e-commerce you mentioned today is growth path. What other trends associated to e-commerce or not are you seeing amongst your customer base?
Just to give you one figure regarding the e-commerce that I have mentioned so many times today. In market of Serbia, number of e-commerce merchants grew for 100% in 1 year. So looking at the last September and this September, it doubled. Which is great. And we see that also in the share of e-commerce transactions on the issuing side, like we as a bank of the issuer. What we also see as an emerging trend is number of contactless transactions, which is great. And also use of our M-card solution, like the Apple Pay and the M-card, so like the M-wallet, which is good. It's not still on the very high level, but it's increasing. What we see as a really high increase in the results is digital sales. So I know that maybe for some people listening to this, digital sales is out of the question, but when you're talking about the digital sales in the banking, this is like for us, because the regulations are kind of a fresh still for us. So a digital sales of the banking product is something that we see as a really increasing trend. We had, when we look at the pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic period, we had 84% of increase in digital sales, which is, great. You just needed one pandemic and one lockdown to onboard people to digital, but to get seriously, really, it took time that we usually don't have so many time to really onboard clients to using digital, to really emphasize the benefits that clients have from this digital features. And what you can spend your time anywhere else but in the bank branch. Why would you do that to yourself? And just to make a little bit retrospective to what you said previously, all three of you, we're talking about the customer centricity and the customer experience. I would just like to lift it up to another level. And I would say that we're all talking here about the human experience. It's not even a question if it's the customer. It's how do you deliver your experience to the customer is one part of the sleeve, but the second one is how do you sell it to your own employees? How do you make their life easier in order to sell it to the clients, in order to really prove the value that you're giving to the client? So I think that using the right wording can make a huge difference, like we're using the social distancing instead of physical distance. It really makes a huge difference. And I think that we all here talk about the human experiences. It's just maybe it's time to shift it.
And Maja, and for brands, and I'll ask all of you this question, and for brands like your brand, in this case, OTP Banka, is it becoming more difficult for brands to have that human connection with their customers, or is actually the tools are actually giving you everything you need to decide and make it easier?
I would say that the digital is actually giving us more space to address to the needs of our clients. Because if you lost in all the transactions that daily banking and the things that are really repeatable things like the low value transactions, then you don't have time really to dedicate to your client, to explain why it's good to use digital, to explain, to solve his needs, to involve in their life project, to help them buy the apartment, right? So if you have enough time and you have it by digitizing the daily banking and transactions, then you can make life easier both for your staff, for your colleagues, and for your clients.
Thank you, Maja. What do you think, Marko? Do you think it's becoming more difficult or easier to address our customer at a human level, at an empathy level?
It really depends on your actions. I think it's becoming more easier. As I said, I think in the time of crisis, it's either make it or break it. If you are willing to make it, you will make it. And also, I think for the telco industry as well, the service we provide, connectivity, is such an important service in this period where people can connect with each other. And if you show some flexibility and show some humanity in everything that you do, in every aspect of the service you provide, you will create this long-lasting relationship between the customer and the brand. So I think right now it's even more easier. You just need to be a bit more creative, and really, again, the keyword is empathy.
Sorry. Yes, here I'm back. And what about you, Miloš? Is it becoming more difficult? Is there too many tools now, or is this really helping us?
We are succeeding to manage internally, and we are often even too excited with trying the new tools, but then we really prioritize the ones that help us in conducting the work. And externally, I think in general it reflects the way people live today, and it also reflects the need of our customer, you know, to get information quickly, and then to have less time wasted, etc. There is a huge discussion in healthcare whether digital tools and solutions will decrease the connection between physician and patient. But my personal opinion is that it definitely does not bring depersonalization, but this really helps. And then the quality time between physicians and patients, because physicians are anyway overloaded, will become better. And this is definitely then, I think, the opportunity for this.
And Miloš, I'll continue with you. I want to add one more quick question, then I'll go around again to learn. As professionals addressing customers, be it in acquisition or loyalty, addressing what they need, how often would you recommend other peers and professionals to look at it? Or how often do you dive deep? Is it because we need a pandemic to cause us to do it? Or should we be more proactive, and how often?
I think we definitely need to be more proactive, but also with all of those things that were already conducted, I think we are really, let's say, transforming also our businesses and our interactions to more people-focused culture. And then I think at the end, this will really contribute to, let's say, a greater business community, or I don't know, community engagement, however we prefer to call it.
Okay. And Maja, how about you? How do you think should be the frequency that we address this? I think you're on mute.
Yes. Well, I cannot say about the industry overall, but you cannot over communicate if we are talking about solving the problems. So if you want to do the repeatable cycles of idea, prototype, test, rollout, and then look at the usage and what clients say, I would say that you cannot over communicate. You always, the feedback is always welcomed. It's just on you what you will do with the feedback. Don't ask it just for the sake of the NPS or the feedback, but do something with it. If you don't have time to devote yourself to the feedback, then better ask a little bit later, and then structure the action that you will follow, actually.
Thank you, Maja. And Marko, that same question to you, and I think we have them to close, but how often do you think we should look at this, Marko? Customer journeys.
Well, I think the key word here is strategy. You know, how often you think, stop, and redesign it. I guess in the pre-COVID era, the usual cycle for the strategy was 2 years, something like that. Right now, I think we are at a phase, because the situation is very unpredictable. We can even create a longer-term strategy, for instance, 3 years, but every year we need to do a step back, come back to it, revise it, revisit it, look at the KPIs, look at the parameters. Are we making a difference? How are we progressing? Because a lot is happening around us, and a lot of external factors that need to be, let's say, a sort of a wind in our back, and we need to be quicker. Yeah.
Great, guys. I have 30 seconds, so I'm going to throw one word at you, and I'd love to hear what is the first word that pops into your brain when I say, Maja, customer.
Purpose.
Oh, purpose. Marko, customer.
Empathy.
Empathy. Miloš.
Excitement.
Ooh. Excitement. Maja, COVID.
Challenge.
Marko.
Marathon.
Marathon. And Miloš.
Vaccine.
Very fitting. And finally, Maja, 2021.
Opportunity, definitely.
Marko.
Even more focus.
More focus. Miloš.
Great reset.
Great reset. Well, guys, thank you so much. If I ever get to leave Belgium, dinner's on me. I want to thank you for everything you left us with. And, for years, brands say, we're listening. And you've said it many times here. We need to listen to know what we can serve, what tools we should do, what insights we can use. Listen, but with purpose using those tools. I want to thank you. And I want to thank everyone behind the screen who's helping us be here today. And I'm going to pass the word over to Georgia, who gave us a very warm welcome. Thank you for listening. And thank you, panelists, for a great conversation.